Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats, weekly podcast, episode number 40. I am your host, Dan Matson, a.k.a. Wooden Boat Dan, a.k.a. Dan the Man, and this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, and tradition of wooden boats all over the world, and extraterrestrial wooden boats if they do exist on planets where there is wood and water. By the way, we wouldn't want to exclude those people. Well, welcome to the show today, folks. Usually we don't talk about extraterrestrial life on this podcast, but you got to mix it up a little bit, so why not have a little fun with it? If this is your first time, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. If you're a repeat visitor, you're having fun. I hope you tune in every week and get something out of this free podcast. Today's featured segment is an interview with Josh Colvin. Josh is the editor of Small Craft Advisor magazine, and he's based in Port Townsend, Washington. And I had a great interview with Josh a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be talking about the magazine, talking about small boats, talking about the SCAMP, which is the Small Craft Advisor magazine project. I've mentioned that quite a bit lately. It's a pretty cool little boat, 11 feet, 11 inches long, capable of ocean sailings, a la Howard Rice next year sometime. So stick around for that interview. I would appreciate it if you would connect with me. There's quite a few ways to do it. One way is my voicemail feedback hotline at 424-261-2360. Again, that's 424-261-2360. You can email me, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. You can subscribe to my e-news list if you go to my website, hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. That works. You can leave a comment on my website, which is a blog format where I put podcast show notes each week when I release this podcast. You can put comments in there. You're welcome to do that. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest as Wooden Boat Dan there. I'd love it if you'd send me pictures and stories and anecdotes and whatever else you want to send, cash, vehicles, used records. I don't know. Nah, don't send me used records. I got rid of all mine a couple of years ago. So this has been another fantastic week in the wooden boat world. I cranked on my canoe this weekend, my 12-foot sassafras canoe. As I mentioned last week, I have a goal of July 5th to get this sucker ready to go in the water. So this past weekend, I had it all stitched together. The bulkheads were filleted in place. And so what I did was I epoxied all the lap stitch joints with the hull upside down on a couple sawhorses. And I had some small syringes, but they didn't have a very fine tip on them, so they were a little too big to use as far as the hole coming out for the epoxy. So I was going to buy some West Systems caulking tubes that are refillable. Not refillable, but they come empty. You can fill them with epoxy, then use them to squirt epoxy into your joints. Unfortunately, all the places around where I live were out of those, or I had to order them. And it's like, okay, I want to get this boat cranking. So I got online. I love the internet, and I found a guy that took some latex paint caulk tubes from Home Depot. So what you do is you buy a tube from Home Depot for $1.58 that's full of latex caulking, which is water-based. Cut the tip off, and squirt all the latex caulking out of the tube. And then you, this is quite a process. This is what I did, by the way. So I squirted all the junk out of the tube. Then I took an air hose, stuck it in the tip of the tube, and blew the cap out the back end of the caulking gun. Then I rinsed the caulking gun out real good, wiped it out, rinsed it out with hot water. But I still couldn't get all the caulking out of the needle point of the caulking tube, or the application tip, whatever you want to call it. So then what I did is I cut the application tip in half with a utility knife. That gave me access to the application tube itself, or application tip. So I got that all cleaned out. Then it's like, okay, now I got to put this piece back on. But unfortunately, super glue and crazy glue don't work with plastic, so that didn't work. So I ended up duct taping the tip back in place very tightly. So anyway, got all that done. That took me like an hour. It's like, okay, is this really worth it? Well, yeah, probably this time it is, but next time we're going to buy the tubes from West Marine, the West Systems tubes, and save a little time. Anyway, so I mixed up about 8 ounces of epoxy, dumped it into my caulking tube, put the cap on the end of it, threw it in my caulking gun, and went to town on my boat. And it worked really good. Got all the laps filled up with epoxy. Of course, it kind of soaks into the wood overnight. So then the next morning I went in and refilled those and took a little, my mixing stick actually for my epoxy with a rounded tip on it, and kind of shaped all of the joints to be kind of the shape of a fillet. So they're pretty nice and smooth. So I got that all done. So basically, I have the whole of the boat done. It's not painted, of course, but it's all epoxied and in place. And so I'm pretty psyched about that. I think the next step is to put some glass on the bottom outside and the bottom inside of the boat. And then I got to do the gunnels and the decks and paint and so on. So I'm about 40 hours into this, and I think I'm going to be at 60 hours when I'm done. And probably $500, which is both higher estimates than I said last week. Anyway, that's the update on the canoe. I'm having fun with it. I can't wait to get the boat in the water. What a blast to build a boat from a scrap pile of wood. Well, it wasn't a scrap pile. But anyway, having a lot of fun with that. So let's see. I did get my new artwork for my website and my iTunes banner. And check it out if you haven't already. I think it's pretty cool. Got a little play on words there. And my next step is I'm going to upload some artwork to the internet. So if you would like to, you'll be able to purchase a cap or a t-shirt, coffee mug, calendar, I don't know what all, with the Hooked on Wooden Boats logo on it, which I think is pretty flashy. I actually paid a professional to do it, and she did a great job. Okay, I've got some listener feedback here from Brian Hansen. Brian's a guy that lives in Everett, Washington, that I used to work with. Good guy. So take it away, Brian.
Hey, Dan, it's Brian Hansen. Just got done listening to your interview with Howard Rice, and I'm sitting down here at the Everett Marina dreaming about boats that I don't have, but looking at some that others do. Anyway, one question. Howard had mentioned something about you coming down and getting your hair wet, and I was just wondering if you were wearing your wig again, because you and I both know you don't have any hair. So, just wanting to keep you honest. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, Brian, with comments like that, I should really exclude you from the air, but I won't, because I get very few comments on my voicemail feedback. So now that everybody that listens to this show knows I don't have any hair, actually, I've got a little bit. I mean, probably 1/8 of an inch in places. And normally I wear a cap. So, okay, whatever, Hanson. I let you get away with it this time. But, next time try to add something to the show, okay? Okay, moving on here. Upcoming events, Wooden Boat Show, Mystic Seaport, Connecticut, June 29th to July 1st. Center for Wooden Boats, Wooden Boat Festival, Seattle, Washington, June 30th to July 4th. SCAMP class, Port Townsend, Washington, August 6th through the 17th, 2012. Howard Rice, John Welsford, Scott Jones, and others will be helping you build your SCAMP from a kit. The kit's on sale. The class is discounted. It's an awesome deal. And if you send me like $3,000, I'll attend myself. Actually, I do plan on showing up there and interviewing John Welsford and maybe some other folks. There's other events posted on my website, so check it out if you get a chance. And if you've got some events you'd like me to post that fit the site, shoot them over to me, and I'll take a look at them. Okay, we're ready for the interview with Josh Colvin. Josh is a great guy. We had a lot of fun, so let's go ahead and kick it off here. Take it away, Josh. Okay. So it is May 19th, 2012. I am sitting here with Josh Colvin of Small Craft Advisor magazine. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we're at the first annual Pocket Yachters Palooza, and Josh is here with, you've got a booth set up and so on over there.
Yeah, we're kind of acting as a sponsor of sort for the Palooza and the forthcoming events. And yeah, we've got a little booth out here with the Pocket Yachters, a local small boat club that we're also involved with.
Right, right. So you started the Small Craft Advisor magazine in 2000 when you were living in California. So tell me what kind of led up to that, why you made that decision.
Yeah, well, we were in different businesses at the time, and but heavily into sailing, and we noticed that reading about small boats was it was almost difficult to find anything on. So there used to be Small Boat Journal years ago, and there was a magazine that existed that covered the topic pretty well, but after they kind of dropped out, and I guess in the early 90s, there was a void. We would flip open the mainstream glossy sailing magazines, and every so often you'd see something on a boat that we could sort of relate to. Mm-hmm. And that was frustrating. And we also found that there were people referencing a good small starter boat for $66,000. We just really couldn't relate. It wasn't our world. It wasn't sailing as we knew it. So we got to talking about, hey, maybe we should start a little newsletter and on small boats and cruising, and it kind of evolved from there.
Mm-hmm. I see. Very cool. So had you done a lot of sailing and stuff before that, or?
Yeah, quite a bit. As a kid, off and on, and then I actually at the time I owned a couple of surf shops. That was sort of my thing when we started the magazine, and but I'd gotten back into doing a lot of sailing, and that sort of led to it.
I see.
Yeah.
So did you grow up in California?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have some wooden boats as a kid, or?
I had a mix. A mix. I remember, smacking together, trying to build my own raft as a kid. Mm-hmm. Going way back. It would be periods off and on where I would be involved in it, and I had a Mercury sloop, and years later, of course, all kinds of boats since. But.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you have some boats now?
Right now,
boats?
My personal boat right now is I'm down to one boat, which is sort of an unusual thing.
Really?
Yeah, but. I'm sailing the SCAMP prototype.
Okay.
And that's my primary boat right now, my only boat right now.
Okay. So for our listeners who don't know what that is, tell me about that whole project. And there's a lot to that.
Yeah, it's taken on a life of its own. I've been referring to it as the 11-foot, 11-inch space shuttle. For all the brain power and resources that have gone into it, but it is an acronym. The name is an acronym for Small Craft Advisor Magazine Project. Mm-hmm. And we had an idea, or we've had some ideas for over the years. We review a boat in every magazine, every issue.
Okay.
So at this, at the time we started thinking about SCAMP, we had reviewed and sailed some 60 or 70 boats, and we got to thinking, you pick up little things. It'd be nice to have a boat that did this and did that. So we had a few ideas for what would be nice about it, but we're not designers. Mm-hmm. And one of the designers we're fond of and we work with in the magazine quite a bit is John Welsford, mm-hmm. the New Zealand small boat designer. And so we had a communication with John, and we said, hey, we've got a few things to throw at you. Can you make a boat out of this? And we know with the typical characteristics of his boat that it's going to be a pretty good fit. And
mm-hmm.
He was real enthusiastic about it. And so we started exchanging ideas on it, thinking that what we would do is we would release a series of articles about the boat and give us some good material. It'd be interesting for readers to see what it's like collaborating with the designer and ending up with a kind of a commissioned design. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to another. We decided to go ahead and build a prototype and maybe go ahead and sell plans. And then we actually built it here at the Maritime Center under Case Prin's direction. And Case was pushing for a kit. He said, if you're going to go through all this work and you're going to develop these plans, you really ought to have a kit available. Yeah. So we jumped in deeper and went ahead and had a kit designed with Turnpoint Design here in town.
Oh,
a great company, and Brandon down at Turnpoint. So the combination of things, then it started to take off. Then all of a sudden we had plans in a kit, and it was amazing the chord it struck as a design. Here it is, an 11-foot, 11-inch boat with a variety of kind of unusual features, and it really struck a chord. And one of the things that really kicked it off was small boat adventurer Howard Rice, saying he contacted me from Japan actually, and he said, I want to fly over and test sail that boat.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. He said, you're coming all the way from Japan? Geez, Howard, I can't afford to pay. No, I don't want to pay anything. He says, I just want to come out there. I want to sail that boat. He goes, that's exactly what I've been working on for some adventurous things he has in mind. He said, that's exactly the kind of boat I want to do it on. He said, I'd like to try it. I think it's the right boat. And so I said, well, you're welcome to come out. And we had just launched the boat, and so he came out in the middle of snowy January and took the boat and left and went over and overnighted on it. And
really?
Took it off for a cruise. And
out of Port Townsend?
Out of Port Townsend, went over towards Mystery Bay and the islands there. And anyway, he came back just thrilled, said it's exactly what he thought it was, and he said, I want to buy 2 kits and get going on building my own boats. And then it's taken off. That the combination of all these different events, and we also had one enter the Everglades Challenge and do really well in a pretty challenging offshore environment.
So what makes that boat really unique, Josh?
Well, you take a look at it, and people, the first thing they notice is the pram bow, which is very intentional design. It's got a lot of buoyancy to it. It's a difficult boat to broach, for example, with all the volume up in the bow.
Yeah.
So that's the thing people see right away, but functionally, the thing that'll astound you if you've not been near the boat is that when you see it, you will never think it's a 12-foot boat. You sit in that cockpit, you'll think you're in a cockpit for a 15 or 16-foot boat.
Oh, okay.
But the unusual features, water ballast. It's got 173 pounds of water ballast and a tank right in the bottom of the boat. So if you think of it as a sailing dinghy, which it really is, if you took a person, an adult man, and set them in the bottom of the bottom of the boat right in the center, it would add some stability to the boat, and it does. So you've got that, and you also have an offset centerboard. The centerboard is in the seat.
Okay.
And that opens up the entire footwell. So here's this 12-foot boat. You're not bumping your knees into the centerboard. You're not trying to work around the trunk. It's gone. You don't even notice it. Most people don't see it, and they always ask, what are you using for lateral resistance? Yeah. So the offset centerboard, the water ballast, and really probably the most unique additional features are there's 8 discrete watertight chambers in the boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's got massive flotation. You've got the flotation cabin, you've got flotation in the seats, you've got flotation in several bulkheads within the seats. The floor is actually sealed flotation aft of the center, after the water ballast and forward of the water ballast. Wow. So the boat is, needless to say, unsinkable.
So what's the beam on that boat?
5'3".
Yeah, so it's almost half the length.
Yeah.
But that's kind of characteristic of a pram type style boat, is the bow's cut off, so it's a much bigger up to the point, right?
Precisely.
Yeah. So, and that has sleeping accommodations for 2 people?
Yeah, I should mention it. The way it's designed, the brief on the boat really is that you would sleep. A solo cruiser will sleep along the cockpit sole. There's several provisions in the sole that make it more comfortable for sleeping, including like a gutter around the outside, so if any water comes aboard, it kind of funnels back to these little sumps in the back of the boat. But it's designed so you sleep with your upper body under what we call the veranda. We've been referring to it. It's the cabin roof extended aft, but it's essentially functions like a hard dodger. And so your upper body is underneath there, and it's actually quite nice because when you're in the sailing configuration, somebody's on the boat wants to sit below, they can actually slide out of the wind, out of the noise, out of the weather, and be really kind of warm and toasty sitting on there. If you want to make a sandwich, or you're going to change the batteries in your GPS, or you're doing something like that, you're out of this. There's no spray, there's no water.
Nice.
So that all happens under there because you have big stowage doors, hatches right forward of you. So that's all under there. And then just sleeping on it, it's an 8-foot 3-inch long berth, essentially, by about 27 inches wide. So very comfortable for the single cruiser. If you're going to cruise in tandem, or you have a two crew aboard, you can put filler boards or cushions in, and then you have a 6-foot 6-inch double berth in just the cockpit.
Okay. You said it has a centerboard?
It does, offset.
Yeah, offset centerboard.
Yeah.
So you can raise and lower that, obviously, for trailering.
Yes, very easy to trailer. The boat with rig and everything is about 420 pounds, which is an indication it's a big 12-footer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a big boat, but it's also flat-bottomed, essentially, and it has skegs that balance out so that it'll dry out completely flat. Mm-hmm. One of the ideas behind the boat was that one of the, I guess, motivators for the design was sailing in small boats around here, particularly in the Columbia River on a trip that I went on. I was sailing, and I kept seeing these little waterways, and even in my little 16-foot boat was a little too big to actually, comfortably row up there. It had a little more draft than necessary. Yeah. And SCAMP is really designed so that it's got to be seaworthy to get you there, but then once you get there, you should be able to tuck into the shallowest thing, and if the tide leaves you, you dry out.
So you can row it pretty easily?
Yeah, rows will row.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So, tell me about the construction of that boat. What's the construction method and material and all that? Yeah,
it's all HOWB plywood. The way the kit works, at least, and this is the recommendation with the builder's manual, is that it's 6 and 9 millimeter, and it goes together upright, and it comes with a building jig. The plans and the kit have a building jig for it, and it's just to line everything up. The kit is kind of special because at Turnpoint Design, who makes it for us, they actually pre-bevel all the planks, and it's a variable bevel. So it's deadly accurate, and it's so accurate, in fact, when they were building it here at the Maritime Center, they were commenting on the fact that normally they're lining up, they're working to try to get the bevels to line up, and they said it was almost the opposite with this boat. The bevels were so accurate that you could kind of line the whole thing up off of that. I mean, it just really slick. The precision with CNC is remarkable.
Yeah. So how many strakes on the side of that boat?
3.
3 strakes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's a flat bottom from there then?
Yeah, it is. It is, essentially flat bottom. I mean, there's a little bit of rocker to it, but basically a flat bottom.
And 100 square feet of sail?
100 square foot balanced lug.
Balanced lug.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a single sail boat.
Single sail, single sheet, single halyard.
Yeah, so that's pretty simple to operate.
That was the idea, to keep it as simple as possible. Our part of the overriding thing, I guess, for the design, again, going back to the brief, was what is it that we loved about sailing that we're losing sight of? Mm-hmm. And people they've got a boat in the marina, they're doing all this maintenance, they're paying for this, they're paying for that, they're putting gas in the outboard. So wait a minute, what I love about sailing was I want to just be able to go down there, push the boat in the water. If I have to take 2 strokes with the oars, fine, but then I want to put that sail up and sail out of the marina and go out and sail around for a while and float, and maybe go up to the mud and jump off. I mean, this is what we're trying to get back to.
Yeah. Very cool. That's what I love about small boats. I'm a small boat guy myself. Okay. Because it's just easy to get them around. You don't have any, you're not paying moorage. It's not a big, you don't have to pull them out and clean the bottoms. Right. Do all that stuff.
That's exactly right. And that's
lower maintenance.
And that's the theme of our magazine as well. And I notice so many of the customers, the readers of the magazine and also the customers for SCAMP, it's amazing how many of them are older folks who've had all kinds of big boats and have working their way back down. And they say, I just want a boat where I can maybe take the dog or a grandkid out in and just poke around.
Mm-hmm. So how much does a kit cost?
Kit is $2,300 for that's the complete kit. It's all the plywood components of the boat, which is 99% of the boat. Yeah. And we also offer a foils kit separate for $325, and that's rudder and centerboard in 18 millimeter Okumi halves.
Okay. And then you have to supply your own spars and sail.
Yeah. We have a sail we offer. It's $6.99. It's Neil Pride makes a real nice 3 reef point cream colored stock sail for us, but
So if somebody's going to buy the kit and buy the centerboard and the rudder and the sail and build their own spars and do it, what would be the total estimated cost approximately?
Yeah, boy, it's real approximate. It's funny because you have a couple of the boats that have been built here. We've got bronze port lights in them, and we've got the heavy pintles and gudgeons and all this stuff. But so you really have a wide variety. Somebody threw out a number at me for a real nice one of the ones that's been built, number 6, and they threw out the price of under $6,000.
Really?
Yeah. And that was with a lot of bells and whistles. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
wow. So what length is the mast on that boat and the boom?
16 feet is the length of the mast. I don't know the boom measurement off the top of my head, but it's 16 feet on the mast. The mast, as we built it, was a bird's mouth hollow spar.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and we put solid spars on the yard and boom. But we have some builders, and this is typical of a lot of John Welsford's designs. I'm sure it's common with a lot of designers, is that the builders, they're real comfortable, they're reasonably comfortable building the boat, the hull, but they're less comfortable with spars.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have really taken us up on that. We have the specs for doing bird's mouth.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
For that boat?
Yes, it's included.
Oh.
It's included in the plan, so it's there. But a lot of people are hesitant, and so as a result, we've actually made available information for doing them aluminum if people want to paint an aluminum spar and put it on there. But we're encouraging people to consider the.
Yeah, definitely. You don't.
Not surprisingly.
That makes me sick to think of aluminum.
I know, it's amazing how much it happens, and I think people get to they get to that stage of the build, and they think, I'm ready to hurry this thing up now. But
right. Wow. So what's the total weight of the boat again with everything on it?
About 420 pounds. That's the number we came
420
up
with the spars and everything. Yeah. And do people put any electric motors or anything on them, or?
It's a good question. Yeah, it's designed so that it can carry a motor mount, and you can run a regular, small horsepower outboard on it. But one of the most appealing auxiliary propulsion options is putting an electric outboard on it, and instead of putting your water in the water ballast tank, is to go ahead and put batteries in there.
Oh.
So you get the effect of the ballast.
Oh.
It doesn't add a ton of weight to the boat anyway, either way, and then you're not dealing with, fussing with the water ballast. You just leave the batteries in there and charge them that way, and you can vary the size of the aperture of the opening into the tank, and combine that with an electric outboard, and you'd have a really slick little boat.
Yeah. But if you're a minimalist, you row out from the shore as far as you need to safely start sailing.
That's right. And it's an unusual boat, and that was another part of the design brief, was I want a boat that I can truly comfortably sail it in and out of the marinas. I mean, provided conditions are all reasonable, because it's not a boat. What I always think of is it's small enough that if I do run into something, I'm unlikely to hurt it. But mostly it's really very maneuverable, so it's boat small enough that you can do that.
Yeah. And what's the draft on the boat?
7 inches.
7 inches. Wow, I like that.
Yeah. You'll go anywhere in it.
Yeah. So now, have you done some longer distance sailing with your SCAMP?
SCAMP is fairly new, and it's interesting because we've had so many events and so many things that SCAMP has been a part of already, that I was joking with somebody earlier saying, people sail it, I don't sail it. It's my boat, but it's always getting used. And this is an example again here at the Academy. They're going to use it as the lead boat for demonstrations. It's going to get capsized intentionally. They're going to do all kinds of stuff with it. So to answer your question, yes, I've done some short, some overnight cruises on it, and lots of day sailing on it when I can find the time. But I've got plans to do some more substantial things, but it hasn't happened yet.
So how does it do in rougher water?
Well, it was a goal for us with seaworthiness. That's why we that's why we started with John Welsford in the first place. Is as you're familiar with his designs, you know that they're almost all kind of overbuilt, and so it does very well. It's got high initial stability with the beam in the bottom. It's got the water ballast in there, and probably one of the key components of the seaworthiness aspect is that, and this is what Howard was so interested in coming flying all the way out here and testing, was I can see it's a seaworthy boat, but I want to know if it does get knocked down, what happens? Can I bring it back? Does it take? Am I done for the day? There's a lot of production and wooden boats where they're very seaworthy, but if they do happen to go over, it's the end of it. Or you're going to need some help. And what we proved with SCAMP, and there's a series of YouTube videos that you can see if you. If you type in SCAMP capsize, you'll see all the videos. And in those videos we document and we did it two ways. We went out in static testing and sitting over here in this slip, and we tested it first to see what would happen, and it's very easy to write. One person can swim around, grab the board, pull it down, and hop in the boat. But what we did in live conditions with Howard is go out and test it, and when 20 plus knots of wind and real seas, yes, and we did the whole thing, and it's all on video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the boat is.
Have your dry suits on and all that?
It was dry suit, dry suit conditions. Yeah.
Wow. So she doesn't have a tendency to turtle, probably, I wouldn't think.
No, she's fairly comfortable on her side. We did force a turtle in the boat, and it can be turtled. I mean, I figure any boat that gets on its side can be, and this one certainly can be. What was nice about her was, and John told us all this with, Mr. Welsford told us all these things would happen. He had run the numbers. He was very comfortable with it, but we were biting our nails a little bit to see what would happen, and we turtled the boat and were able to recover it easily from a turtle.
Okay. And the centerboard locked down in position, or?
Yeah, one of the the prototype board is funny. The prototype we didn't do that, and since it was just sort of an afterthought for us, and so the plans now suggest locking the board down.
Capsize, you can use that for leverage.
You can use it for leverage. Yeah. The boat is actually, it sounds crazy, but the boat, even with all that beam and that weight, it's got so much flotation in it. The way it sits, it's actually rideable with the board closed. If the board retracts, it's still rideable with any kind of a line at all, because you can roll the boat over.
Oh, okay.
It's very buoyant.
Yeah. So Howard Rice has his own SCAMP now?
He's actually got 2 kits he's building. He's working on 2 boats, but nothing's finished yet.
Okay.
So,
How many hours estimated to build the boat itself?
Yeah, there we go.
It's a $1 million question, right?
Well, the designer, John is, I think it's a tendency of designers to talk about these very low numbers. I'm not sure.
100-hour boat.
Right. I think the original number thrown around was 150 hours or something, maybe 200 hours. But I can say this much: I saw a boat. We didn't keep good track. There was so many things involved. The prototype, changing things, everything.
Yeah.
It was kind of a wild card. But there was a boat built from a kit that was built here at the Maritime Center, and after 220 hours, they left. And when they left, that boat was completely together on a trailer, looking like a boat, except for there was no paint, no hardware. He had a few things left to do in the boat. So I'm sure he probably, by the time it was done, he probably put as many hours in at home. But it was a functional looking boat. It could have floated that day and been in the water. So I kind of use that as my rough number.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, so what's happening at the Palooza today, Josh?
Well, it's basically, I'd call this an old-fashioned boat show, or mess about almost, because there's no entry fees, no complications. It's just we put out the word, and we didn't have a lot of time to do that even, that we welcome anybody with a small boat, whatever you think is small, bring it on down here, and we can put them in the water. We're putting them some here in the courtyard at the Maritime Center, and it's just a chance for people with small boats to kind of gather and look each other's boats over. It doesn't have to be any particular build material, doesn't have to be any certain type, doesn't have to be in pristine condition. Just small boats, that's the only criteria.
And you've got your SCAMP here.
SCAMP is here.
Yeah. So how, you had some wooden boats as a kid, and before you had SCAMP, did you have other wooden boats in recent years? Or?
I'm trying to think of the last wooden boats. There was a few fiberglass boats in there too.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Mixed it in along
I know,
the way.
I had mine.
Yeah, no, I think, I'm trying to think of the last one before that. Oh, yeah, there was a cat's paw dinghy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was one. In fact, I had that up here in Port Townsend and had some fun on sailing the bay here.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So tell me just briefly about your magazine. What's that all about?
Yeah, Small Craft Advisor is a national magazine focused on small boats, and we've been actually publishing since 2000. We're going on issue number 76 now.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we've got a good...
Bi-monthly?
Bi-monthly, 6 a year.
Yeah.
And the focus is all the things we're talking about really here. We lean towards sailboats, but we do cover some power boats, some rowboats. And it's a glossy magazine and available on all West Marine newsstands and most Barnes and Noble stores, and then of course by subscription.
Yeah. How much is subscription to that?
It's $29.95 for the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can get it on Amazon probably?
Sure, you can get it on Amazon. You can come to the smallcraftadvisor.com, and as I say, most boat stores are nautical newsstands.
So what's your contact information, Josh, if our listeners want to email you or go to your website or get a hold of you?
Sure, I appreciate it. Yeah, the main website is www.smallcraftadvisor.com. That pretty much covers everything. The phone number is 800-979-1930, 979-1930.
Now, is this your full-time gig, doing the magazine and the SCAMP project and all that?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
All right. And it looks like you're eating okay and stuff. You're getting enough food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
every other day.
I met some wooden boat builders that are, it's a little tight on the pockets.
Yes.
But
Yeah, well, you don't get into the publishing business to get rich, and you don't get into the small boat publishing business to get rich for sure.
Well, any parting comments for our listeners today, Josh?
No, I just I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I encourage everybody to get out on the water and keep it simple.
Okay, very good. Thanks for your time.
Sure.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Josh, for doing that interview. It was really fun to meet you. And I love your magazine and your project and the SCAMP. That's all really fun stuff. Look forward to seeing you in August at the SCAMP class. And appreciate the time. Okay, that's about it for today's show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to help support me, go to my website and click on the Jamestown Distributors button on the right-hand side. And if you make a purchase from their site of epoxy or screws or marine supplies, I get paid a little bit. Or you can go to the resources page on my website, click on any item on there that's sold at Amazon, go to Amazon's site and select anything that they sell and make a purchase, and I get paid a little bit there too. The other way I'd love it if you supported me is it doesn't cost you anything. Go to iTunes, look up my podcast in the podcast section, and give the show a 5-star review. Right now we've got 16 5-star reviews, which is really awesome. I'd love to get 30 to 50 and get up to 100. And that just puts the website on the radar a little bit more. And I'd really like to do that, get the word out to more people that can enjoy this podcast. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Keep the sunny side up and the barnacled side down. Have a great week. Get it out on the water. Varnish your boat, sand your boat, sail your boat, row your boat. Row, row, row your boat. No, that's not a wooden boat song, I don't think. Anyway, have a great week, folks. Good talking to you. Wooden Boat Dan, over and out.